Got the report from Paul and a few other listeners. They ended up making the trek up to Miner Dave Everest's claim over on the Sturgis Creek and such, and it was pretty non-eventful. Of course, we don't know. Maybe what's going to happen. The Forest Service will come and kick him off the land, burn down a shack or two. I mean, that does seem to be the pattern. But what I wanted to talk about, though, was the overall, I don't know, the state of the relationship between those who make a living or try to make a living being productive on the land and those whose main job seems to be to keep them off. I mean, everything but keeping people productive. We'd rather have you on welfare. At least that's kind of the way it feels there. Mark Johnson, my friend over in Grants Pass, is on the program this morning. Welcome back to the show, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Bill. Good morning.
Good morning to you, too. Now, you logging this week, or is it an off week?
It's an off week. I had a long pull here for, I'm blessed. I mean, I had a couple months where I had to work pretty hard, and then I get a lead on them, and I get a break. Got to rest my bones a little. Yeah.
Now, are you an independent logger, or I mean, how do you describe yourself to folks?
I'm a timber faller. I work underneath. Work for a yarder outfit, the last industrial yarder outfit left in Josephine County, and so I'm kind of semi-contractor. I get wages and also rents and mileage and that sort of thing.
How has this year been up to this point, and contrasted with, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago?
We're the exception. I mean, we have contracts for Boise on Forest Capital. We're tough enough. We can go up into Douglas County and work for Seneca and some of those people for white rice.
For white rice, you said?
Yeah, white rice prices.
Oh, white rice. Oh, okay. All
Douglas County's white rice prices. Ever since Rosenberg Lumber downsized, they had a pretty good little buffet going there. And when that downsized, a lot of those people went over to the other landowners, and it's become quite competitive. They move. You drive up to Canyonville or something, and there's things happening there, but it's just something to do. It's not a profit center, but good for them. I mean, they're doing things.
Certainly. So set the table for what's going on, at least in your view, in Josephine County, because what I like about talking to you, Mark, is that you are just as able to sit down and break bread with some of what I would view as some of the craziest environmental friends that we could have possibly out there, the ones that are most into creating the church, the theme park, and yet at the same time, then you sit down with miners and loggers. You're, hanging out there, chatting with Sheriff Gil Gilbertson in Josephine County quite often here too. You're kind of a linchpin up there in Grants Pass area. So, what is the status of like the Miner Daves in Southern Oregon in your view?
Well, you got a couple of moving pieces there. The BLM administrates mineral rights, so you'll get individuals like Boyce, who's the director of the whole Medford area, or Katrina, who does the Grants Pass compartment, or maybe Vince that does the timber up here, or Dustin, those that does the roads. Those people, I found with the BLM, even though they're tied up with a big, like Gulliver, tied up with all these rules and regulations, they're always reaching out to the community, trying to make it work. And they're not in an enviable position, obviously, but that's what I find a characteristic of the Bureau of Land Management.
So you call up the BLM, and they'll sit down and talk with you, and you'll try to hammer out some kind of agreement or plan of action, generally speaking, even if you don't like the rules. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Or if they don't like the rules, even if they don't like the rules. I mean, they're not adversarial. They're trying to serve the public. Okay, so there's the key thing. They're public servants in my mind. This job I just got finished working on, clear up there up Days Creek. The road is starting to get a little mud on it. You turn around and the BLM graders there with the rock truck. Okay, and, they get road use, rock fees. Well, they're right there. It's a team thing, and it works pretty well. And down here, pretty much the same. You run into your adversarial relationship with the U.S. Forest Service.
So what kind of relationship do you have working with USFS? And I don't just want to throw them under the bus here, but this seems to be a very common complaint, that it's a U.S. Forest Service problem. I don't know, is it about style or substance, or maybe a combination of both? What's it like when you come up against a USFS problem?
Completely different sort of agency. It's like they're speaking a different language. I left when they had the confrontation with U.S. Forest Service law on David Everest's claim, I left Roy a note, the guy that the ranger of the Wild Rivers here, and nothing. You never hear anything from them. If you want anything from them, you about have to file a Freedom of Information Act and send them a certified letter, and that's how they communicate. That's how that whole. It didn't used to be like that. The U.S. Forest Service was. I started working there when I was 15, and I really looked up to those people. And it is transformed into kind of a holding company for land. They don't do much. I got to give Conroy's retired out or moved out of the Rogue here. Rogue Siskiyou was the supervisor, but he had quite a few thinning sales and operations going. He was trying pretty hard to do some things, but I noticed his name's not on the letterhead anymore, and they have a bunch of acting supervisors and acting deputy supervisor. So that's in flux.
So, Mark, in your take on it, what changed between the days in which, your early days when even you were working in the U.S. Forest Service and now?
Well, the old guard that they used to be, Forest Service, I don't know if they were mandated, but they were kind of self-sufficient. They used to make enough income off of their raw material usage, their parks and recreation, anything they did to about float the agency more or less, Mm-hmm. And they went to, they went full environmental, and they have the agenda of they tend to want to take out the roads. They tend to want to not do anything. They don't want to log. These miners just drive them crazy because they've got a tool that they can't control, the Mineral Rights Act. They just hate that.
Now, you talk about the Mineral Rights Act. Are you speaking of the 1872 Mining Act?
Sure.
Okay.
And they can't, I think they just, how many million acres do they own down here? I have no idea, but they own two-thirds of the land down here in southern Oregon. And here, David Everest, for example, could possibly, he has a really good claim, and he meets all the constraints. He could possibly, by the end of his lifetime, have a piece of deeded private ground from that. And I think that's what just drives them absolutely crazy. They can't assimilate that a piece of government ground could possibly end up in private hands.
So what happens, I'm not a miner, and even I have difficulty at some points understanding the vagaries of the 1872 Mining Act, the Mineral Rights Act that you were just talking about. So someone like a miner, Dave, is up there, and he's working only with hand tools. This, according to listeners that wrote me a report about what happened up there over the weekend. He's using only hand tools. It's not like he has some sort of power sluice or whatever it is. And so he works hand tools, but if you work it long enough or effectively enough, it eventually could become your private land. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's somewhat parallel to the Homestead Act.
Oh, okay.
They gave away, the system's interesting, the government system. And one of the things years ago, like 1812, they decided that to get minerals out of the ground and to develop the nation, that they would give those minerals to the people in up to 40-acre tracts.
To the people who, of course, were going to take the effort and labor to develop it then.
Yeah, they didn't. It's not quite like oil leasing or something. They said, hey, okay, you get that stuff out of there and it's yours, and we're all better off. And I think the reason they did that is minerals go across all ownerships and things. There's a piece here, and then the next deposit is over on the Forest Service, and it's on a piece of private ground, then it's over there. And so they developed a tool to allow this to be developed. Somebody was pretty catty about that. And it's worked. We've had minerals and things come into our economy all along from this act.
But what happens, though, is that you have someone like a miner, Dave Everest, up there, and you, at least in your view, this drives the Forest Service crazy because the Forest Service looks at it as their land, and that's just it, pretty much it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then in southern Oregon, an awful lot of these deposits are in stream beds, so you run into the water issue. And they get pretty emotional. The river keepers and all these various environmental groups are very emotional about anybody in the water. And they've got a mindset that any sediment or anything kills all fish. And
now, just so I understand, you do some mining too on the side.
Yeah, I do a little bit of scratching around. I'm more on the recreational side of it, really. I mean, I've found a little gold and stuff. If things all crashed, I know some places where I would go, and I think I could make a living doing it.
All right, good for you. Mark Johnson, once again, Grants Pass, and we're talking about this drive to drive miner Dave Everest off the land, off of his claim. So he does not have a perfected claim then.
I don't know his exact situation. I think he has I'm sure he has a claim filed under the Department of Interior out of the BLM in Portland.
But the Forest Service doesn't want to recognize that? Is that what happens to these miners?
Well, now there seems to be some headbutting between the agencies.
Okay, imagine that.
Imagine that. And he has a right to be there. He's got a mineral rights claim, and I'm sure he keeps it current and sends us so many dollars every year and redoes his paperwork. But they don't seem to have a big bugaboo about anybody staying up there. You know, and if fuel goes up to $5, how the heck are these guys supposed to make it? I mean, they're going to have to stay up there, camp up there. You know, they can't be driving back and forth to Grants Pass. There's not that much, on these small-scale operations, there isn't that much profit.
So are you not allowed to live on the claim during this process?
Well, you know, the law allows for cabins and sheds and things for housing tools, and, you know, there's common sense rules like for, you know.
Oh, okay, well, dumb question then. Why does the Forest Service go up and burn these cabins down?
Well, they don't like miners. they hate them, I guess, and they come at them with guns, and I don't think it's right. And I've talked to them about it, and I don't get anything from them, you know.
So what do you think is different between the experience of like miner Dave Everest, who, like I said, I had a conversation with him. He's not the most articulate guy in the world, you know. I'm talking about, you know, smooth talker, as it were. But he seems to be a decent guy, and he's filed all sorts of paperwork. He says that he's filed all sorts of paperwork on the U.S. Forest Service, and they never answer him. But
this is what happened with Clifford Tracy. I mean, Clifford has a tendency to roam around with his backhoe. Okay, well, maybe that's not such a good thing. But the reason he's pretty free-spirited, but he tried, in his defense, and I know this secondhand pretty good, that he... Clifford Tracy tried to do all the paperwork with the Forest Service, and they just stonewalled him. They just stalled and wouldn't deal with it. Well, then individuals get frustrated.
So it becomes a game then of the Forest Service, at least according to the miner's point of view. The Forest Service is just going to stonewall me and just drag the process out until I'm dead, and then, of course, we don't develop the claim.
And then, or we just go do it and the heck with them. Mm-hmm. And then they say, okay, we're going to take you to court now. See, we can't get you on the Clean Water Act, so we'll get you on. You didn't file a plan of operations or something that we didn't handle. Mm-hmm. See, so it's there's a piece a deeded piece of property right in the middle of Calamy opposite Emily Camp, and there's a road system that comes from the Illinois side that goes clear in there. Well, they said they could probably use that but it might take 5 to 8 years to sort through that, the Forest Service. So it's kind of a semi-recreational thing. They fly in with a helicopter and that sort of thing. But, it's that sort of stonewalling. It's like, well, 5 to 8 years, I'll be 58, I'll be 60, That's how the government does it, to try to run them out. They play for timings, and particularly the Forest Service. And
it almost sounds like a form of passive aggression.
Yeah, it is. They'll just wait you out. And they have unlimited time and money. I mean, if they're not printing money, they got people that get paid to do nothing. So to them, it doesn't make any difference.
What type of people are these men and women who do this kind of mining, like the miner Daves and such?
Well, you have all sorts of folks. I was talking to Earl down at Dutchman's camp down at where the Scott River comes into the Klamath down there, and Earl told me that 85% of their group down there on the 49ers are ex-Vietnam veterans. Okay, so there's a demographic that we're pretty familiar with. Up here we have a mixed bag, and some of the Little John, a miner friend of mine, he says there's quite a wave of new young miners coming in, people with no experience, pretty high expectations too. And
they look at gold at $1,700 an ounce or so, and they're thinking, hey, maybe I can't make any money any other way right now, it seems.
Well, sure, I'll get a dredge and I'll become rich. Just like happened at Chilkoot Pass in Alaska. Mm-hmm. They all it's kind of a little bit of a rush with that, but you have people that tend to a lot of them have, like Randy Mack. I talked to him a while back, and he's up above the Grace Creek Bridge, or Galeese, clear down there, where the trail starts on the river. And, he's never held a wage job his whole life. He's got polio in one arm. His one arm's dead. He's dug gold with the other arm his entire life. And, okay, you get individuals like that. Never paid into Social Security. Never had health insurance and none of that stuff. Never been married. Just, he digs. And he's a heck of a nice guy. Everybody just loves him around here. He's kind of a fixture. And, revered uncle.
So these, are, in some cases you could refer to them as society's misfits. They're not office workers. You're not going to see them in the white business shirt, as it were. Free
to be independent.
Yeah, free spirit, from what it sounds like. And are we running out of space in this great land for people like them?
No, we're not running out of space, but they're taking space from them, and there's no need to take the space from them. And most of them are more than willing to follow the fish and game rules and that sort of thing. They take their trade pretty seriously, and they want to do a good job. I had Wayne and Ann came up from Northern California, some friends of mine, and they live clear down there, Callahan, Gazelle. They got a self-sufficient place down there, and they've made a living doing it. They live in Northern California, and Wayne has worked for the U.S. Forest Service at Happy Camp, and they also gold mine, and they've been on fires, and they've logged, and they've anything they could do to make a living. And those kind of people in Southern Oregon, Northern California, and I put myself in that category. You just do what there is to do to make a living. We can't all go work for Medco. All those jobs are gone.
728, Mark Johnson here, and we're talking with him about the mining situation and trying to produce on the land. And there seems to be just a real war, a real bone of contention. Morris, you had a question for Mark. Go right ahead on the Bill Meyer Show.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. Do you have any suggestions on how many chickens a person should raise in their backyard to get through this next election process? Maybe a couple boxes of bees, buy some silver. Got any good ideas? Remember when I told you to buy some rhodium at $900 an ounce, and it went up to $27? And
I don't know. You want to take that question on, Mark?
Morris is supposed to come over and help me dump bees in the box this spring, and he's got my email of my clandestine, semi-illegal chicken farm here at Grants Pass. All my chickens are covert. They're special op chickens, we can't.
Do you think you can feed them white rice and they'll get along okay?
Yeah, they seem to get along okay. I talked to the zoning committee, which was all the neighbors around, and they all said, that'll be fine. And then Lacey next door has the FFA girls. He's got about a dozen rabbits. So we're all doing fine here at Grants.
Yeah, trying your best to keep it together. All right, thanks for that, Morris. Patrick, you had a question on the Forest Service. You're with Mark Johnson. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have two questions, Bill.
Yeah.
And Mark, number one, when the Forest Service burns down a cabin, why is that not arson?
I
don't know. Mark, do you have a take on that?
I think it is, and I don't know why they don't get prosecuted. It's like it's an unequitable system. And there was like up at the Leopold mine on the way up Galeese Creek Road they had a single wide trailer there, and there was a family living there. And at that time, I worked for the county. I was doing real estate appraisals for the county, so I'm up here looking at this trailer. And the people came out like they were being inspected, and they were showing me their clean laundry and how nice their place was and all that. And about a year later, they ran them out of there, and I'm kind of going, well, they aren't doing any harm, and they were working the ground. So I don't quite understand why they won't let them live out there if they're not, if there's sanitation